Thank you so much. It's so great to be back here for the second time this week, but for our third installment of our SEL showcases. Again, Brain and Frame, Director of Social Emotional Learning. So in March, we started when we took a journey to Brooklyn, to the Urban Assembly School for Collaborative Healthcare. Earlier this week, we took a journey to Queens, and you learned from business technology, early college, high school. And today, we're going to take you across the city from Brooklyn to the Bronx. We're going to spread love the Brooklyn way, but also give you a little of the boogie down. And introduce you to New Vision's AIM 1 and AIM 2 charter high schools, which are amazing, phenomenal schools out of the New Vision's portfolio of schools. And so what I want to do is also make sure I give a little highlight to New Vision's. So New Vision's mission is dedicated to ensuring that all New York City public school students, regardless of race or economic class, have access to high quality education and prepares them for the rigors of college and the workforce. Furthermore, New Visions is committed to sharing innovative tools, strategies, and lessons learned in New Vision schools with others in New York and throughout the country to prove that meaningful change is achievable at scale and success is possible for every child. And so Urban Assembly and New Visions are both part of the what we like to call the innovation zone here in New York City. And so it was a perfect partnership for us to come together. We used some of their tools and the work that we were doing is social emotional learning to marry that together. And so for this is the second year of us working with New Vision's AIM 1 and AIM 2 schools. And so it's just an honor to be able to get to this point to showcase to the world all the amazing work that has been done over the last 2 years, pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and how we have made sure that social emotional learning is a priority in both settings. And so with that, we're gonna move forward. And so I have the opportunity to introduce the esteemed leadership of both schools, Ms. Jackson and Ms. Greer. But wait, right before I do that, please in the chat, let us know where you're checking in from. I didn't say that at the beginning, so let us know where you're checking in from. Let us know where you are, what school you represent, what district. So we give some shout outs. I see Raleigh, North Carolina on the check-in. I see Hollywood, Florida. I see Connecticut. I see Bermuda on the check-in. So we are officially international. I see New Jersey, Brooklyn on the shout out. You know, always got the Brooklyn check-in. Illinois, and so many other places. The Bronx, Texas is here. So thank you everyone for letting us know where you're checking in from. California is in the building, Wisconsin, so Jackson, Mississippi. So again, we're all over the country is here to learn from New Vision's AIM 1 and AIM 2 schools today. So without further ado, I want to introduce Ms. Jackson and Ms. Greer, the leaders of these two schools, and we'll start with Ms. Jackson.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tamika Jackson. I am originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. How I made it to New York is a long story that I won't get into right now. But I have the honor of being the principal of AIM 2. I've been here for 4 years now. I am excited. My background is in alternative education and special education. And to join the AIM 2 family 4 years ago and look at it now, I am super pleased. I am truly honored to be a part of this organization. It is amazing to work with people that want to work with young people that have struggled, that have had multiple failures, that have had trauma, just embedded in every aspect of their lives, and to work with people that want to see and they do the work to make sure that our students succeed is amazing. So I'm humbled to be doing that work. I'm also honored to be partnering with Urban Assembly. We've been with them for about 2 years now. And so that has been definitely a change. SEL means everything to our school. When you're working with students from the ages of 15 to 21 who have transferred out of other schools, if you're not from New York and don't know what a transfer school is, that is a key component, right? As much as we want to address the academics and all of these other things, we must address the social emotional. With a lot of our students, it is necessary for you to get to know them before they get to trust you. Therefore, our focus this year has been on social awareness and responsible decision making. Why in a pandemic have we focused on those two things? Well, let's think about it. I mean, now we were online, we're about to go back into the building soon, right? We must be socially aware. Our students must be, not just socially in their space when they're in school, but also in this online community. What does that look like in an online classroom? What does that look like on social media? What does that look like even in their homes that they are now, you know, in close quarters with, because they can't escape to school, right? So what does that look like? What does that mean? And so we wanted to make sure that our students were equipped with that so that they could thrive, right? Responsible decision making. Now that you're home, you have to decide whether you're going to log on to join your class, right? You have to decide whether you're going to do the things that are necessary, and we want them to be responsible, not just in the school building, but outside of the school building. The whole point of education is to build up the next citizens of the world, right? And so we address these two components and during the pandemic, because it was key. It was a key out of all of them. Those were the two priorities, because we wanted to make sure that our students were equipped to not just survive the pandemic, but also thrive in it, right? Despite not having the access that they would have if they were in the building. So that's me. That's my school. You'll hear from the team. This team has been absolutely amazing. I rave about them all the time, everywhere I go. We partner with AIM1, so you're about to hear from Ms. Greer. We talk a lot. We coordinate and collaborate a lot. And that's a big and key component, I think, to our success. So I am done. It's nice meeting everybody.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jackson, and turn over to Ms. Greer, AIM1.
Good afternoon, or maybe even good morning, depending on where you are in the country. My name is Kristen Greer, and I am the principal at AIM, New Vision's AIM Charter High School 1. We are located in Brooklyn. I saw some Brooklyn guests in the chat room, but you know, we are just so thankful to be a part of this opportunity to share a little bit about what's happening in Brooklyn. So just to give a little background, I have been the principal of AIM1 since the school began. And I am just really thrilled to be a part of an amazing dynamic team where our focus is to take students who have faced the greatest obstacles and have the most significant barriers. And our job is to help them with a post-secondary plan and also a graduation, a diploma. And so what we try to do and what we've realized is that students are coming in with so many different needs, so many different concerns. And we take in students who, with a preference of students who have been court involved, students that have had life situations that have, you know, may have caused a significant disruption in their academic experience. But I like to say we take in some of the greatest students, and despite their barriers, to me, they show great grit, great perseverance and determination because they continue to show up every day. And so with that, we have an awesome team you're going to hear from a little bit later. But I kind of want to say that I have been looking for the last 6 years for a socio-emotional model that will really meet the needs of our students. And about, I think a couple of years ago, we partnered with the Urban Assembly, and you know, it was literally a perfect fit. I'll never forget the first thing that we did was we all got trained, everybody, leaders, staff, and it was like a 3-day, this is pre-COVID. So, you know, they weren't playing around with us with that training, but it was an experience that allowed us to be trained, but not only trained, but assess and to really think through what current structures align to the socio-emotional competencies. We align to the 4 competencies that you may see floating behind me: self-management, self-awareness, social management, and social awareness. And what we wanted to do is put everything in student-friendly language. That was our first attempt to help students understand what all of these competencies meant. After we were trained, we engaged in a process of getting our staff trained and basically leading them through the work. We have an awesome coach, Josh, who leads and works with us, and we engage in socio-emotional learning walkthroughs every single week and looking through a trend report. But what we begin to see is that this work is not in isolation. This work has to happen in the classrooms as well as in the advisories and in the one-on-one work with our youth development team, who you'll hear from shortly. But one of the things that I think we are super thrilled about is our work with our teachers and how they have begun to incorporate the socio-emotional work into their lessons. And so as part of, even in the virtual experience, we, in our Zooms, we have a SEL check-in. And you will hear, some of the teachers kind of talk about that and what that means. But I think what has been most thrilling is to hear what the students have had to say about the work that we have focused on, specifically around self-management. We have found that a lot of students did not necessarily know how to properly execute their emotions at all times, like some of us adults, right? And so what we have realized is that we have to model, we have to also learn, and we have to be able to hold students accountable to very significant needs within that work. Anyways, I don't want to share too much because I know the team has a lot that they're going to share, but I am just thrilled that we have an actionable model. And I think that's what's most important. You'll see all of our charts and our implementation rubric and our sustainability rubric. But what's most important is what we hear from the students, and specifically students that have shown that this work that we're doing is necessary to their development towards their post-secondary future and to their graduation. So we're thankful to be a part, and I'm going to pass it back over to Brandon.
Ms. Greer, thank you so much for that introduction. And again, we're so honored to be working with you. We want to give a big shout out to Greg Lucas of New Visions as well. I know he's tapped in and watching right now, and him leading the social emotional work at New Visions. So I want to give him a big shout out. And so now we have to introduce the leads of the SEL work in both buildings. So first, we're going to have introduce Dr. Badilio, and we want to highlight that because she's now doctor, right? So everybody that's tuned in right now, we just give her a round of applause. She's officially Dr. Badilio and Miss Alexander. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to them to lead you in a presentation so that you get more oriented to the work that happens at both AIM 1 and AIM 2 charter schools.
Thank you, Brandon. So I'm now going to share my screen of our brief presentation about the AIM 1 and 2 SEL experience, along with Laquana. So we definitely want to shout out, we're both social workers, and so we saw some social workers in the chat around the country, so it's very exciting to see. So thank you so much for joining us. And so I'm briefly going to be sharing a bit about the AIM 1 experience and what we do. So our SEL work at AIM 1 is really the virtual experience. We're just actually starting to go back into the building this past week. And so we're going to continue moving forward to continue to have our advisory classes online, and of course with some SEL check-ins while students are in our school building. What's unique about our school is that we are a transfer alternative high school. We don't have traditional grades. We have houses and camps. So our Summit House is very similar to what we would consider a senior class. So our Summit House has advisory 3 days a week. And again, this is virtual and online. We also have a couple of program partners who support with our advisory implementation that focus on wellness and relationship building. And 1 day a week for our Summit House, our SEL work focuses on the social emotional skills, being prepared for college and career readiness. Our base and peak class, which is similar to like being a freshman or junior, we have combined advisories with both of those cohorts on Mondays and Fridays. And Fridays are focused on SEL topics that may be related to current events or teen topics of interest. And then on Monday, we also focus on the social emotional skills, getting ready for college and career. Also to AIM 1, we have 4 SEL focused groups. We have a healthy relationship group that's twice a month. We have Girl Talk, which is once a week. We have Barbershop Talk with our male staff and male students once a week. And we also have our LGBTQ and allies group. In addition to, as Ms. Greer mentioned earlier, we have SEL check-ins in the virtual Zoom class experience with our teachers as well. And now I'm going to kick it over to my counterpart, Laquana. Ms. Alexander.
Thank you, Dr. Dezio, and congratulations. It has truly been an honor to work side by side with you. We have a similar population as AIM-1, so I'll take you through a bit of what AIM-2 does for SEL. During our first year, we were trying to identify what particular SEL targets what particular SEL competencies did we want to target. After utilizing and seeing the DESA results, we decided that for this year, it was only right to take a look at what social awareness was and what responsible decision-making was. And I think as Principal Jackson discussed, that was important, especially during this pandemic year, as our young people were home. Our advisory is co-led by the members of the counseling team and teachers, which is new. Last year, this was strictly led by our counseling team, but as we know, SEL does not just live in one place and one place only. So we have actually partnered both our counseling team and our teachers to co-lead. Our camps have advisories one day out the week. And just as AIM-1, we have base camp, peak camp. And we found that our younger population, we actually wanted to have a target focus on SEL with college and career pushed in. But for our older youth who are getting ready to transfer out, our focus would be college and career. However, SEL would be infused directly into that. We also have monthly camp town halls. So every camp has their own town hall. That audience is primarily for our students, but for our parents as well. And that's where we try to reinforce the SEL lessons and topics that was covered in advisory that month. It also allows parents to get a sense of what's been happening. We also run a bi-weekly SEL student and staff podcast where we cover different topics and how our students can manage, especially during this remote time. There are also bi-weekly SEL and college and careers workshops that take place. There's also a monthly parents workshop that is SEL driven and targeted to promote and to drive in and hone in on some of the SEL competencies. Mr. Frame, I'm going to turn the baton back.
Awesome. So thank you so much. So to give a little of the agenda, so you got a little bit of introduction in terms of the schools and how they orient themselves around the principles of social emotional learning. And so we're going to move into a teacher panel so that you can actually meet some of the educators who are actually doing this work on a daily basis. And so we're going to start first by having each one on the panel to come off mute, and you can introduce yourself. So tell everybody who you are, what you do, which school you work at, and something interesting about yourself. And we'll start with Stacey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stacey Singh, and I am with AIM-1, who is extremely happy to be a partner with AIM-2. And I am one of 4 advisors, here at the school. And we all love the work that we do and happy that we can support in that.
Thank you so much. Ms. Pert.
Hi, my name is Eva Pierce. I am a proud member of the AIM-2 family. I guess my interesting fact would be that I joined the AIM-2 family weeks before the pandemic. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to share all of the work that we've been doing.
Thank you so much. Ms. Shock.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ms. Shock, but students refer to me as Miss Liz, and I'm totally fine with that. I am a teacher, special education teacher at AIM-2 High School, and I'm in my 2nd year of teaching. And a fun fact or interesting fact about me is that I'm a native Ohioan who moved to the Bronx, started teaching in the Bronx 2 years ago. So that's my interesting fact.
Thank you so much. Ms. Alienne.
Hi, my name is Carla Aline, and I'm part of the AIM-1 family, and I'm an ELA teacher And a fun fact about me is that I also work as a screenwriter and playwright.
Awesome. Ms. Ashley?
Hey there, my name is Ashley Yuvnin. I am at AIM 1, and there you will hear me called Miss J. I am one of our special education teachers. A fun fact about me, I guess we'll stay with the location. I am originally from Denver, like Miss Jackson alluded to. I just kept going east and landed in New York.
Wonderful. And Ms. Akiwumi? Oh, you're on mute.
Please forgive me, I do that all the time. My name is Miss Akiwumi. What did you want to know?
What school you're at? Something.
Oh, AIM 1. I am at AIM 1 Charter High School. Fun fact, English educator, fun fact about me is that I am a certified yogini in 2 different traditions, and a certified mindfulness meditation, trauma-informed educator.
Wonderful. So that is our illustrious and amazing panel of educators. And so we're going to get right into our questions, and we'll start with how do teachers learn to teach SEL skills? And we'll start with Ms. Akiwumi.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mentioned that I am certified in many different traditions. I think it's important to train yourself so that when, I've also experienced multiple forms of trauma. So I understand where a lot of our kids are coming from in reference to facing trauma, going through trauma, and living and thriving and growing through whatever it is that it comes your way. So what I did was, with my trauma, I trained myself. I went to actual trainings to certify myself, to understand the layers of the trauma and where the trauma fits somatically in my body and how to proceed with that. So I bring it to the classroom. I tell them when they walk in, when we were in the building, they would walk into the classroom and I kept the lights a certain level. I made sure there was a certain kind of music. I made sure that when they came in, they had a few minutes to cool out or cool down before we actually began. There were check-ins. What's your temperature for today? If the temperature was hot, what do you need to cool down? I need a walk. I need water. I need to get some food. So all those different multiple levels of needs were being met in the building. Online, we were able to have SEL moments where we can frame the discourse for the day. So that's the beginning for me.
Thank you so much. And that intentional focus to develop those skills is so important, and how then you bring that to the school. I know that it's truly appreciated. Miss Eileen, can you also have some thoughts around how do teachers learn to teach SEL skills?
Well, for me, it was a crash course about, I would say before we went virtual, about 2 trimesters before we went virtual. I believe it was Dr. Diaz that created the class. We had a class that was instituted every day, I think 30 minutes every day, or 2 days a week if I'm correct. And I would teach SEL with an advisor. And it was first, I worked with Ms. Singh, and then I worked with Ms. Doughton. And what I loved about that was that for the first time as a teacher, I got to work with an advisor, because we're always so busy and I'm always lesson planning. And, and they're always, counseling the students. And so we cross paths all the time. And here we are now in a classroom together working with the students. And I say that it was a crash course for me because it was time, at that point, I was like, there with the advisor and with some of my students from my classroom, some that had issues, some with the classroom or what was going on. And I just had an opportunity to actually sit down and get to know my students one-on-one and get to know the advisor and actually really get into the SEL competencies. And so that went on for about 2 trimesters before we went virtual. And it was an amazing experience because we were breaking ice all the time. Like, I got to know the students better. I got to know like myself better through them, what they thought about me. And so it was a great experience.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Ashley, you also had some thoughts around how do teachers learn to teach SEL skills?
Yeah, so I think my experience with teaching SEL skills is probably more closely aligned to Miss Eileen's. I had the opportunity to be a part of one of our advisory classes about 2 years ago. And I think that really started to set it in motion for me because I saw the difference it made. I think being able to be a part of that advisory class where the conversations were different. So oftentimes in the classroom, our focus is the academics, but in that advisory space, it was able to be purely the social emotional. And so the ways that I was able to connect with the students through some of the prompts and the conversations was much different to really build those relationships. And then having established that, the student seeing me in a different light, right? Like them seeing me as a human being, not as a teacher, really change it to bring that then into the classroom with me. And so continuing with some of those prompts ideas and just bringing some of those practices into the classroom space where while it may be more focused on academics, that's how we can start our class and sort of set the tone and still continue to have and build those relationships.
I'm loving this intentional focus on developing the SEL skills so that you can teach students, but you can model it to them. So thank you so much for sharing. We also, there was one person, one teacher that did not get a chance to introduce themselves. So I want to give Ms. Jones a chance to introduce herself.
Oh, thank you. I'm Ms. Jones. I'm the College and Career Advisor at AIM-1 Charter High School. And I guess I could add a fact. I'm classically trained in piano.
Awesome. Well, next time we do a virtual showcase, we're going to need you to play something for us.
No problem.
So I'm going to stay with you for our next question as we move move forward with our questioning for our teachers here. What challenges and opportunities have arisen during remote SEL instruction?
The challenges that I've been faced with is keeping the students engaged. Now that they're remote, there's just been a lack of feeling led to log in or even submit work sometimes. And being a college and career advisor, I have the opportunity to encourage them to start looking at colleges, to start looking at trade schools, to start, looking at jobs and other opportunities that they may be interested in. But because of being remote, it has been difficult to encourage them, period. But what I've been able to do is we do an assessment. There's this program that we use at the school. I think it's similar to Navient, which is Zello. And so the Zello program, it allows them to learn about their personality style, and it also allows them to learn about their learning style. So when they do that and they see how they process information or what their strengths are in that, it allows me to use that as a teaching mechanism. So if someone is a tactile learner, they like to work with their hands, there's an association there. Maybe some of those students are usually into words of vocational work, like a trade of some sort. So they're into culinary, they're into construction or some sort. We talk about that. We visit those avenues that allows them to see what they may be interested in doing. Also with the advisory classes that I'm able to facilitate, I'm able to just give them more in-depth knowledge beyond just college, because a lot of students, they're not crazy about college or even thinking about the future. So meeting them where they are now, having those conversations, having those check-ins with them to see how they are mentally, how they are socially, and what they're able to do moving forward and what their interests are.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Ms. Jones, for talking about how you, even with everything, with the challenges and opportunities, but even integrating that college and career piece into the work, which is so important. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I would love to hear from you, Ms. Shock, around what challenges and opportunities have arisen during remote SEL instruction.
Yeah, sure. Love to talk about, mainly, I like to focus on the opportunities. So I think we all know that during this pandemic, we have faced lots of challenges as educators. And I know that our students have faced lots of challenges, but I have tried to find ways to support my students in the same way that I was able to pre-pandemic. And so I did a lot of reflection, and through that reflection, I would ask myself, like, okay, even if attendance, even if I'm not seeing the same students that I would see in the building in this virtual setting, like, where are they? But I realized a lot of times students were coming in and sometimes they weren't engaging in their work or engaging with the lesson, and they would just come in. And then I realized, like, okay, we were actually like meeting their physical and emotional needs, even if they, weren't coming in and completing, the tasks that we set forth for them. And so in a virtual setting, it has been challenging to try and engage those students. But what I like to do is in my like virtual classes that I teach live, I like to be explicit about like encouraging students to voice their emotions during these class sessions, right? So teaching them the words or phrases they need to be able to do that. And then also like to have like a group, like class group reflections at the beginning of the lesson so they can voice their frustration. So if there's something they don't like about the class or something that like, they just, maybe they had a bad day, I provide that space for them. And I also like to focus a lot on like gratitude. So having students kind of like, after they voice those negative emotions, have them, then move on to kind of, say what it is that they may be grateful for. And then another thing in this type of setting is I like to focus a lot on student outreach. So that's really big for me. At AIM2, it's a big push for us to call students, text them, email them, call their caretakers, text their caretakers. Like, we speak to students on a daily basis. We speak to their caretakers on a daily basis. So for me, I've used that as an opportunity to have moments of reflection with students and caretakers, and trying to teach them, certain ways to basically express their emotions in a healthy way.
Ms. Shock, what I loved, you said so many gems there, and I hope people who are tuned in are taking notes, but you really brought in that family piece, right? And thinking about how we make sure we extend this beyond the school walls. And Ms. P, I want to come over to you and get a look from you around the challenges and opportunities that have arisen during remote instruction.
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, being new to New York right before pandemic, I was just starting to dig in and get to know students, trying to learn the culture, and then we were sent home. So that has been a challenge because my teaching style has always been centered around getting to know students and meeting them where they are. A challenge behind teaching math in general. You often hear people say, I'm just not good at math, or math is my work subject. But a lot of the work that I've been doing over the years is trying to change, almost like changing self-talk. So instead of saying, I'm just not good at it, I just can't do it, maybe you've had struggles in the past, but what can we do now? Where did you stop learning it, and how can we apply it to what you can do now? So adding that on to the challenge of being behind a screen, where sometimes students don't want to turn on their cameras and they're like, who is this new lady? Never seen her before. But just really trying to get used to students and allowing students to kind of see where I am, and realizing that we're all experiencing this pandemic together, but we can still do this, we can still learn together. So the opportunity that has presented itself, I love the fact that I've had the opportunity to partner with advisors and advisory, and getting to know students that way as well, that we're able to do things like talking about empathy and talking about self-talk, and how to help motivate students to realize that that academics is something that they can still accomplish even in the midst of a pandemic. So I love the fact that there is a platform to incorporate social emotional learning. I love the fact that that is a good way, a good teacher practice is to get to know your students. And so through SEL, it has definitely increased the ability to motivate students to learn.
I appreciate you just sharing that journey and sharing how SEL has helped you do the work that you want to do with students in the classroom and through advisory. Because what I find as I travel around the country and work with tons of schools, that's actually in so many places what we're showcasing here doesn't exist, where you have teachers and advisors and counselors all working together. It doesn't just live in many places, it just lives in the social work department. It just lives with counselors or school psychologists, but at AIM 1 and AIM 2, it lives in the entire building and everybody's bought in and seeing how it impacts student development and student achievement. And that's so amazing now we get to see that. So I'm gonna transition to another question. I'm gonna come over to you, Ms. Singh. And we're thinking about assessment, right? So we have students doing SEL, right? But we want to see how they're doing, observable behaviors. And we use Aperture. That's one reason why we're here. They brought us all together today. So big shout out to Aperture for the work they do. So Ms. Singh, can you tell us a little bit about how do teachers, what feedback do students receive around social emotional learning?
Oh, thank you so much, Brandon. Some of the feedback, we are very intentional about some of the feedback that we give them because we want to promote, the 4 competencies areas, which is self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and social management. So anytime we see some type of growth or development, we make sure that we name it. We want it to shine, we want it to be intentional, and we want to continue to promote that. So we have award ceremonies that we make sure, hey, your attendance is improving 90%, 80%, 100%. Your grades are improving. I see you on the principal list, the assistant principal list, the deans, and we try to find incentives to support and reward the students with as well. We have Red Critter points where they can go into the school store and shop around for things that they have earned through watching their language and anything that's dealing with them, watching their language, coming in on time, coming in frequently, great attendance, and also the feedback we give is all kind of non-direct, and it's through modeling. We show them how we want them to perform as well. So a lot of times, especially in our advisory class, when we come in, you would see it's more than just 1 or 2 facilitators. Sometimes, we have interns there, we have teachers that come in and join us because it's such a great space to connect with the students and get to know them. As Ms. Jay and Ms. Eileen said earlier, it's a great opportunity to connect with the students that is not academic, to create those relationships and bonds, which can now support them and carry them through the lesson plan when need be, because we've developed that trust, we developed that connection and those relationships, and they get to know us with, the transparency that we give them and let them know that we're human as well. And, if there are areas that we have strengthened in our lives and areas that we are still continuing to work on. So a lot of the feedbacks that we give them is to help them grow with their grades, how they're doing academically, attendance. We call parents to see how they're doing, and we try to make it strength-based. This is what they're doing and this is how they can improve, opposed to what they're not doing and they're just doing horrible. Because as Ms. Greer said earlier, once they keep coming in, we know that they're here to strive. They have a goal, they have an it that they're working for, and we want to continue to grow and flourish that within all of our scholars.
No, I love that. You really just hit the nail on the head around the focus of culturally competent social emotional learning, viewing our students for their strengths, viewing the communities in which they come from as a strength, right? And assessing it in that way is truly remarkable and just shows the dedication and the commitment across both schools to make this work come alive. So that's amazing. So Ms. Eileen, I want to come back to you for my next question. when we think about this work, and we've talked about how SEL lives in so many parts of the building, how do teachers integrate social emotional learning skills outside of the direct instruction of advisory?
So when I was introduced to it in advisory, Ms. Diaz and I, Dr. Diaz and I would converse about cool ways of actually incorporating it into the classroom. And so I'm an ELA teacher, and during that time we were working on the book, The Odyssey. And so we, one of the things that I did when my students was doing character analyzations were, can we figure out, can we look at Odysseus and his issues, and can we look at him as, how was he self-aware, right? How was he managing himself? And he wasn't, and so the students really got into it and started to like really answer the questions. And then we would talk about, how they do it. Like we would talk about how they do it, and then we would talk about the character. And they really, like, I gave them an assignment where they would do a whole character analyzation sheet based on the SEL competencies, and they did it and loved it. And so that was, I try to do that in my lesson plans if we're looking at a novel and taking characters out and actually looking at characters from that perspective, and it gives them a deeper look at it. And now I introduce it, we bought SEL in. I teach once a week. We teach ELA once a week. So at the beginning, we don't do a do now. So talking about the SEL competencies now is pretty much our do now. And it really gives the students an opportunity to actually talk about themselves. I would put up a question in their pod about self-management. Like, for instance, what happened at the White House with all of that chaos that happened at the White House. We looked at a video about that, and we said, are these people, like, let's talk about self-management and this group that just charges into the White House. And the students had a lot to say about it. And so I try to find things that's going on like, in the media, and bring it as an example for them to discuss during we spend about 10 minutes before we go into the actual our actual lesson every week with using SEL. And for me, it makes them open up, and they are able to share because they're sharing about things that they know, and it kind of breaks the ice and makes the class run smoother.
Miss Eileen, I'm getting emotional listening to you talk about how you integrate this into the core content areas, because that's the next level of the work, not just with AIM, but all of the AIM schools, but everywhere, right? How do we take this and bring this into the classroom, and to different core content areas? So thank you so much for showing us and giving us a real live examples of how you do that. And again, I just hope people are taking notes, because all the gems are being dropped this afternoon on a Friday afternoon. So I want to move forward to our next question. I have 2 questions left for our adults here before we move on to the finale, and the highlight of our showcase is hearing from our students. And so I'm going to come to you, Ms. P, and we're going to talk about what SEL skill are you developing?
Okay, I am developing self-management. This is an ongoing thing, to be able to listen to my body, and to make sure that I am allotting time for everything. So whether that is for work, whether it's for my own personal educational growth, and then when my body says it's tired, and to take that rest. Prior to working from home, I kind of was like, work stays at work, this stays here, that stays there. But now working from home, everything is at home. So that more time and effort has to be put into self-management.
Thank you so much for naming that. I think I'm so happy that you talked about that, because everybody on here has dealt with that at some point in their professional career. And we really have to think about how we take care of ourselves and model that for ourselves to even be able to transfer that information and knowledge to our students. And so, Ms. Singh, I would also like to hear from you, and what SEL skill are you working on?
It's so cool to speak about areas that we know that we're strong in and areas we know where we can grow, right? So for me, I would have to say that it is self-awareness. one of the tools that we've been given by Urban Assembly is the DESA. And, this is where we get to sit back, and it's like a survey to let us know where we are and how we're doing, and areas that we can grow in. And that's one of the areas that I see that I came up that needs strengthening. And later on, you do it at the beginning of the year, and then you get the opportunity to do it again later on in the year, and you get to see where the growth happened. So it's something that we do as staff, and we also do it with our students. And we also model how we can be vulnerable in those moments and showing them that we have strengths and weaknesses. And for me, it's self-awareness. As P just said, there's things I have to listen to my body. And sometimes, like, even speaking, you get a little nervous, but how am I right now? Am I giving it my best and tuning myself in and being conscious and present? And it's something that I'm just going to continue to work on so that I can continue to model for my students that because we see something as a weakness, it doesn't mean that we are weak. We're just continuing to grow and transition, as human beings.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think the biggest from both responses is that it's about what we're doing for ourselves, so then ultimately be able to model for our students. And adult SEL is so much a part of the process, right? It's not just about developing our students, but for us to continue to develop ourselves so that we can develop our students. And so I'm gonna head to our last question. I'm gonna come to you, Ms. Victoria, and we're gonna start with you, and I'm gonna have several people answer this question, and then we'll move to our students. When we're doing this work, and when we're in the field of education altogether, there's those students that always stick out in our mind. There's these memories that we have of why we do this work. And so, Ms. Victoria, I would like to start with you. Who is a student that inspires you to continue this work, and why?
Ms. A, you're muted, Ms. A.
I know I always do that. Please forgive me. It's a student who, she graduated already, but she was somebody who she was just on fire all the time, just hot in terms of her energy, her vibration was always fight. I'm angry, I'm gonna fight. Little things would just upset her. She would just go off all the time. So after a while, I just, observe, I mostly observe a lot. So I just kind of looked, at her and said, come here. I need your help. And she said, what you want? What you want, Miss A? What you want? I said, I want you to lead this meditation. I got something came up. Nothing came up. I said, something came up. I need you to lead this for me because I got to do something. She said, okay, I got you, Miss A, I got you. So she went to the front of the room, said, come gather around, everyone. And she began to do the steps of the meditation that we taught her. And I tell you, it could bring tears to your eyes because this young lady was just on fire all the time. To see her breathe in, close your eyes. And she was just teaching them what she learned. So that's the one, that's what keeps me going. Sometimes I just think about her teaching her students, her peers, and coming from this hot place to cooling down a little bit and eventually graduating from school. That's it for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story and just inspiring us. We all want to get back to work, not till Monday, but we want to get back to work, to do this work. But we're gonna make sure we still take the weekend to enjoy. But thank you so much. I would like to hear also in terms of who is a student that inspires you to continue this work and why. I would love to hear from Ms. Shock.
Okay, thank you. That was really an inspirational story, by the way. So I have a student in mind. I won't mention his name. By the way, all my students inspire me, but there was a student. So in one of my classes during my first year of teaching, I would go around the class and I would write little inspirational messages and messages of encouragement on Post-it notes, and I would give them to students, or sometimes it would serve a different purpose. And my teachers here know what I'm talking about. Like, you need to foster engagement. So you like praise the students who are doing their work, and then the other ones are like, okay, I'll follow suit. So sometimes it served a different purpose, but mainly to provide words of encouragement. And I would sometimes write really personalized notes that really spoke to the students' strengths instead of focusing on like their deficits or their needs. And I think that's really important as a special education teacher to be able to speak to a student's strengths. But specifically, there was a student at our school who had been kind of branded as like the trouble child, if you will. And he was a little bit out there. And everyone knows him if I mentioned his name. But when I first started, I'm like, well, let me give him a chance. Like, you know, a lot of the students gave me a run for money, including him, but I wanted to really just give him a chance to show me who he really was. And so this particular student, I would write these notes to him, and I would always make sure to focus on the positive. And one day I forgot my Post-it notes. I ran out of them or something. I don't remember, but I didn't do it this one day. And I was going about my day as normal. And I remember he came up to me like, Miss Liz, where is my note at? Like, you forgot to write me my note. And I was like, oh crap, you're right. Like, and he was like, my mom, I put them on the refrigerator. Like, my mom reads them. And he had like the biggest smile on his face. It almost brought me to tears because, I mean, again, students would sometimes talk negatively about him, his behavior. Teachers kind of like shunned him away, and again labeled him as a trouble child. But that student, like, anytime they would interact with me moving forward, after I started doing that, he would always kind of like show some respect to me, and he would know like my boundaries. So I just think, again, if I could share any piece of advice, especially to anybody who is a new teacher or someone who's getting acclimated to a new culture, as I was, because Miss Peart and we're not from New York, and the culture is not even just like different. It's almost like moving to an entirely new country in some ways. So that's a word of advice I have, is to focus on the positive, and if you're dealing with students who have disabilities, focus on their strengths.
Focus on their strengths. That is what it is all about: seeing strengths, seeing the asset, opportunity, and talking to them in that way. And to close us out, as we hear about students who remind us to do this work, Miss J, let's hear who's that student.
So it might be, you know, this might start off kind of the cliche, but it is really true. All of my students inspire me, and I think for different reasons. When we think of SEL as students and as adults, we have strengths in different areas and room for growth in different areas. And to be able to see and be a part of the development of those is really impactful. You know, it gives a lot of meaning to the work. That said, you know, a specific student I have in mind is a student that has been at our school for a few years. He's very passionate about the things he is interested in, and he's very vocal about it. But through the time with us, he has gone from not being interested at all, not doing anything, thinking of when we were in the building, just literally spending his whole day trying to get out of whatever class he's in and wander the hall, to starting to do a little work and then do a little more work, and to start to advocate for himself or express like, this is why I don't like this thing, or this is what I need instead. This is what would interest me. This is what would help me be able to do this. And so he started really advocating for himself and expressing his needs, as well as, I think, being more willing to accept and kind of go with the flow of, if this is class time, this is where I'm supposed to be, you know what? Okay, like, I'll stay here for a little bit. And so being able to work with him in that way. One of the unique things that we've done this year, as we're virtual, right, and thinking of just student engagement, is each staff member at our school has a couple of students where that staff member is one of their other point people to help support them. And this student is a student that's one of those students for me. I'm kind of one of his point people. And even thinking of this year, all virtual, having conversations with this student where I remember back in the fall, there was this rush to finish work at the end of the trimester, you know, put it off. There's perhaps more exciting things to do, you know, video games. But a conversation that really stood out to me at one point was, the student worked really hard to get as much done as he could. And we had a conversation after, and I was just like, how'd it go? Like, what ended up happening? You know, and then going into, you know, how did that feel? And I remember him saying that he didn't like how it felt to wait until the last minute to finish one of these things. And he didn't want to have to rush again. And we haven't quite made the pivot to being a little more proactive, but it was really awesome to have that conversation with that student and to hear that, where the student had that awareness about themselves and the work. And that's not something that this particular student would have expressed 2 or 3 years ago when he started with us. So it's been really awesome to see that.
Oh, listen, I mean, and what's great is this is the great segue to hear from the students. But before we get right into the students, one, thank you, Ms. J, for sharing that. Thank you to all the adults here who have modeled adult SEL just in this setting, let alone the work that you do every day virtually and soon to be in person. I'm going to turn over to Dr. Badilio. She has a video that she wants to share before we move into the student panel.
Right, and I'm gonna press play.
Farmer, but as from the student side, how has it been with self-management? How has it been like getting used to being on Zoom? It feels like it's been 10 years, but it's only been like a year and a couple months. But how has it been with self-managing, like your background? You know, we had this whole setup on how our cameras were going to look. Just being on camera, being comfortable enough to be on camera, not wanting to some days. Like, how have you been feeling?
So this has actually been pretty difficult for me because I've always been like really, I would say, motivated student. I never struggled with like school and classwork. So transitioning into Zoom, it was really hard because I don't like being on camera. I don't like showing my face, and I kind of like lost the motivation, and I had work. I had to do schoolwork, and then I had to research for college, and it was overwhelming. So I would say self-awareness was very important for me because I had to realize like I need to take time to understand, like I need to understand myself, like what I'm going through, and really just get through it, which actually helped me because now I feel so much better than I did a couple months ago, and I'm really happy. So I would say self-awareness.
So the next question is, how have SEL skills concretely helped you be successful, either in school or at home or in the community, especially with the challenges of remote learning? And so just be as specific as possible. So like, I used to, but now I do blank, because I learned the SEL skill that told me to blah, 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 you know? So I used to talk to my mom this way, but now I do this because I learned this SEL skill.
I'll go first. So basically, I used to, like, you know, when people used to tell me like feedback, you know, I was one of those people like, I don't really need feedback. I'm perfectly fine. I don't care what you're telling me. Like, you know, just listen to my own self. So since like, you know, SEL, it just helped me just like be open to everybody's opinion, even if you feel like it's wrong, like you don't feel like it's right or whatever, or you just don't think like, you know, but just being open-minded per se, and just listening to what others have to say mostly. Another one would be, what's another one? I used to be, you know, when something happened, I would not think about what I'm doing first. I would just do it. So also with SEL, it made me like think about what you're doing first and then do it instead of just taking action and just doing something which you could just, you know, consequences happen after. So that's what helped me for SEL, just more thinking and being more aware of what's going on instead of just doing it fast and not thinking about consequences at first.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Sky.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Destiny.
So SEL has helped me in a different way because it helped me become more self-aware of myself. And so the person I used to be more like upset at everything and let things control me. Not more like I was open to opinions, but I would be upset about it and I would just let anything in the world bother me. Like if I tripped on my way to school, I would have an attitude at school about that. But now I'm more self-aware about that and I'm just like, you can't let something bother you or ruin your whole day because it's just a bad moment. So that definitely helped me be more self-aware with SEL.
Wow. I'm seeing a lot of hearts, a lot of nodding heads.
I would like to add on. I'm kind of happy that the school takes SEL so serious because I've always been a student. I did really good, but when it comes to emotions, I'm not really good with that. I don't show emotions, and so with this school being like so serious on SEL, it gave me a chance to, really realize and like understand myself and my feelings, and it definitely makes me feel confident about myself and stronger because now I know when like I need a break. I understand my feelings better basically. So I'm very happy that this is important to the school.
So you just got a little bit of introduction into some students and the work and what it looks like when we build coherence across the entire school so that SEL lives and breathes in all different places and spaces. And so what I'm gonna do now is turn the moderation over to Mr. Salcedo and Mr. Amparato from AIM 1 and AIM 2 to interview students. And they have questions that they're gonna ask them so that you can hear from the students so that what we're talking about is not just, hey, we're just making this up, we're pulling out of the sky because it's not as real, but to hear from the students, that's when you know it's real. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Salcedo and Mr. Imperato to interview students.
All right, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely wanna introduce myself. I am Mr. Imperato, and then we also have.
My name is Carlos Salcedo.
All right, there we go. So I don't know if you guys realize, but we bring the energy. I know Mr. Salcedo brings the energy too, so I need to feel that energy as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to ask a few questions and we have a few students that will answer it. So students, if you are part of this panel, I just ask if you can, one, unmute your mics and two, show your faces as well in terms of being on the panel. And if you don't, just let me know, and then we'll just go from there. But thank you.
I have one disclaimer. My student Melcy, she's on the way to work actually right now. She's juggling a bunch of things, so she's going to try and jump in as much as she can.
All right, perfect, no problem. So the first question we're going to ask is, what is SEL and why is it important? And I guess whoever wants to answer first, you can definitely jump on it. But we'll say, Delia, are you here?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Good afternoon. Okay, so SEL, it stands for Social Emotional Learning, as I'm pretty sure you guys all know. And social emotional learning, it's important because it plays a strong role in functioning in society, every day-to-day little things, little tasks, such as, I feel like, all right. SEL is important because it plays a strong role in functioning in society. For example, social cues, those are imperative because it helps you read the room. It helps you pick up on how others are feeling. So you know how you should move because what you do can positively or negatively affect how they do moving forward. And yeah, that's what SEL is. That's why it's important.
Thank you. And just to add on to that question, Delia, why is it important to you?
SEL is important to me because, as I just gave the example, SEL comes with competencies and social awareness, as I just gave my example. I feel like most of the time I'm having a bad day. I'm gonna be honest, I'm always having a bad day. It's just because I always have a lot going on. And when people bring their energy plus my energy, it doesn't always work well. So I have to be able to, pick up, and I would pick up on others' energy, and I would like for them to do the same towards me in order to, have a productive day. And in addition to that, it also helps me self-manage. It's important because I need to be able to control myself, I need to be able to control my emotions, my feelings. And that way, you know, I have a productive day. I get what I need to get done and accomplish my tasks.
Thank you very much. All right.
Ms.
And
Farmer,
Deshaun-
I was gonna ask Deshaunti, Ms. Farmer, what is SEL to you? Why is it important to you?
Hello, I'm
Yeah,
Deshanti.
I hear you, yes.
Yeah, so SEL is social emotional learning, and it's basically just managing your emotions and understanding your inner self. This is important to me because I need it in life to grow. You know, as you grow, you start to you experience new things, and you really have to understand who you are in order to overcome whatever you're gonna go through in life. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Deshaunti. And then we have Christopher Williamson.
Hi everyone, I'm Christopher Williamson. I'm from AIM1. Unfortunately, I can't turn my camera on because I'm not on my phone. I'm on my PC and I don't have my webcam anymore. But what SEL means to me, it means a lot, right? And I like to give an example. I won't say the school's name, but I transferred from a different school, and in that school, they kind of let the students be themselves, but they don't correct us when we need it. They don't give us that extra emotional support like AIM does. When I came to AIM, the school really felt like a family. If I had an issue, I could go to talk to someone. They would hear me out, understand it, tell me, give me some advice, tell me what I should do, how I should do it, how I should go across some situations. And to me, it really helped me a lot. I feel like I learned more in this school than I did in my other school.
I wanted to ask Amelsi, because I know she's really almost there at work. Amelsi, what does social emotional learning mean to you, and why is it important to you?
For me, social emotional learning is how you manage your emotions and how do you proceed on managing your emotions.
I can hear she was on the bus. I know those Bronx streets. I can hear it in the background.
I'm sorry about the noise. So it's important to me because me as a person with this virus and everything, and with this program, social emotional learning, I have learned a lot about myself. I learned how to manage myself through bad times and how to get through it as a person, without causing conflict, basically. So yeah, it's basically how you manage yourself, and you have to think what you're gonna do before you're doing it. You can't let your actions, your thoughts, your bad judgments get ahead of you, if you know what I meant. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amelsi. You want to jump into the next question?
All right, yes. So the next, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, okay. So the next question, how have SEL skills, oh, all right, cool, help you to be successful in school, at home, in the community, especially with the challenges of remote learning?
Ms. Farmer, you want to go first? I saw your hand at me, but I didn't hear you.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
How have SEL skills helped you to be successful in school and at home and in the community, especially with the challenges of remote learning?
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I'm not sure what his name is. I believe it was Will. I saw it on, I'm not sure. But he mentioned how he was in school and it didn't work out for him, and transferring into AIM, it was so much better. And I agree with that 100% because my first year in my first school, it was a bad experience for me. I was not motivated and I fell behind really bad. But then as soon as I switched to AIM, it was really good. Like the first year there, I mean, my first trimester there, I was on honors, and it was just a comfortable environment for me. So, sorry, I'm a little nervous. So I guess I made a switch. Like in the mornings, I would walk and I would take time instead of getting on buses and subways. I would just walk so I could have a peace of mind. And I didn't notice I was doing that until now. but it was like little changes in my emotions and my attitude because of being in such a comfortable school. So I made a big change and I didn't even realize I did.
Thank you for sharing that, Deshanti. That was, first off, don't be nervous. You're literally getting to speak about probably one of the most important things that you want to share right now. So that's a great thing. And this is about you and your growth. So that goes for all the panelists too. This is about you. And that's the good part about the SEL competencies and about advisory, because we want to bring that and want you to feel comfortable in your own skin. So with that being said, Delia, I'm calling on you next to answer those same questions of how have your skills helped you to be successful in school, at home, in the community, especially with the challenges of being on remote learning.
SEL competencies, more specifically pertaining to social and self-awareness, has helped me in school, especially with remote learning, and within my community, because I'm able to better self-manage assignments and time. I can better navigate a heavy caseload of schoolwork, in addition to a lot going on at home. And I have also prioritized communicating effectively and efficiently with, school teachers and other school officials, in addition to regular people within the community.
Thank you.
I'll jump in next. I'm gonna ask Melcy. She's got a good window. She's still waiting for the bus. Melcy, how has SEL skills helped you be successful in school, at home, in the community, especially with the challenges of remote learning?
Okay, so I'll say that it helped me in school because now, with the remote learning, there's been a lot of procrastination with me with doing work, getting through work, that you feel down. But with social emotional learning, I have learned that no matter what, the work is still going to be there. And it's better for you to put yourself in a positive mindset, in a good mood, other than, a bad mood that you're still going to have to do it regardless. But it's better to do it, throughout the good way. So that has helped me in school a lot, because me as a person now, I can see that they give me work and I'll do it with no problem and I'll submit it the same day. And like they have mentioned, it helps you throughout life. Like it helps you manage things. It helps you go the better way throughout everything.
Thank you so much, Melcy.
Chris.
Well, yeah, Chris, yeah.
Well, SEO has helped me. It's helped me know what I need to work on. Like it points out my flaws, like because everyone has flaws, we're all human. It helps me, recognize what I need to do to get the schoolwork done. I'm still working on it. I still struggle sometimes, but we do have advisory classes and they do like kind of teach us, how to manage your time and stuff while you're at home during this pandemic. It's just, I still need to work on getting my work assignments handed in early instead of like rushing like towards the last minute, which I need to work on, and they're helping me basically recognize that. And I appreciate every teacher who, talks to me about how I'm feeling, how I'm doing, gives me some pointers because, they've experienced school, they've experienced life. So, I appreciate everyone.
And thank you for sharing that, Chris.
Okay, we're gonna jump into question 3 and 5 because we have 15 minutes left. So what SEO competencies are you working on right now? What SEO competency are you most proud of your growth in? And what would be different about your community if more kids use that skill that you've been taught? Anyone can go first.
Okay, so I'm currently working towards improving my self-management skills, specifically pertaining to procrastination, because I have my whole school career, all 12 years, I've been a procrastinator, and it does work for me. I think that's where my self-awareness comes in, because you need to be able to identify what is good that works for you and what is bad that works for you. That personally, I know it's bad, but it works for me. So I'm trying to, make a more healthier change, something more effective. So yeah, I'm working on my procrastination skills, trying to get out of procrastinating, but it's just old habits die hard. And I'm most proud of all my growth in all of my SEL competencies. Everything came a long way. Not gonna lie, since elementary school, being a straight A student, to not going to school in middle school, to about to graduate. So I'm proud of everything. It all ties into one, and I'm ready for, you know, the challenges to come.
And thank you, Delia. Delia, I don't know what you just said, but you made me discover something about myself when you said what's good and works for me and what's bad works for me. That's the benefit.
That was poetic right there.
We learn more from you guys sometimes than we learn from anything else. So we definitely thank you for sharing that. Who else would like to answer that question? I'm going with Deshanti because she's ready to unmute her button already.
Okay, so I would say I'm most proud of my self-awareness. I also have a problem with procrastinating. So understanding, it did work for me at some point, but then this year I had college and, well, I had to get ready for college and, you know, research, and I had schoolwork, and it was overwhelming, and it was really bad to the point where I got, like I wasn't as motivated. So understanding, so being aware of like, okay, I got past it this time, but next time I gotta do better. You know, that was unhealthy for me and my mind. And I would say I'm working on responsible decision making. Like I said, I have a problem with procrastinating. So it's not responsible to wait around and let everything pile up and then go crazy trying to figure out what to do next, you know?
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. I know Melcy's already about to clock in, so Mr. Chris, can you close us out with this question?
I got you. One skill that I am happy to say that I would say master, is when I did first come to the school. I did have like small things I would explode. Like I would get angry at certain situations where you're like, come on, you shouldn't get angry at stuff like that. But I feel like as I grew older, as I've been in the school, they those problems don't really upset me as much. And one skill I am working on, as I said previous, is handling work assignments. So like procrastination, I make jokes like, oh, procrastination is like my superpower. But it is something I'm working on, like with schoolwork, life. You just gotta plan out your time, like get a chart or whatever case may be, and do this day, do this that day. Make sure you can get it in weeks ahead of the due date. That's always the best thing, because if you have something wrong in our school, they give us second chances to correct it. So hey, it's better to do it before the due date than like the day before, day after. But I'm still working on that.
That's beautiful, man. There's a lot of adults that still aren't organized, so don't be. You're ahead of the game. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it, man. Brandon, we're gonna swing the mic back to you for the Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, this was absolutely amazing. I'm looking at the chat, the love that's coming in the chat, and the responses from the students. Absolutely wonderful. Just truly shows the work that has been done over the 2 years that we and prior to that, right? So I think one thing with the Urban Assembly and when we work with schools is we help schools even see that they were already doing this work. We just made it a little bit more explicit. This is not just 2 years. Oh, here we are. No, this is since Ms. Greer has been the principal, since Ms. Jackson has been the principal. They've been doing this work. I had the opportunity to use our tools at the Urban Assembly to help make it more explicit and cohere throughout the whole building. And this is the outcome. So it's just an amazing thing to see when we're intentional about social emotional learning and development. And so now we have 9 minutes because we're respectful of everybody's time, especially on a Friday afternoon. And actually, it's still morning for some people because they're on the West Coast. So what questions do you have? You can put it in the question and answer box, or you can put it in the chat, and we can to the students or to the adults, any question that you may have, any wonderings that you take away from hearing everything that you heard today. So we have a few coming in. So this is from Charisse. What are some specific activities implemented? So maybe Ms. Badilio or Ms. Alexander wants to share a specific activity that was implemented around social emotional learning.
Sure. I'll go from AIM 2. My name is Laquana Alexander from AIM 2. We utilized a podcast to talk about, discuss, and relate SEL competencies to everyday things that is happening. The podcast allows for students to have a safe space and being able to talk, being able to relate, and being able to process. So that has been a huge hit for us here at AIM 2.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, and I enjoy listening to it. Ms. Badilio, do you have Dr. Badilio? Do you have something you want to share?
Yes. So at our school, we have specific SEL groups. So we mentioned earlier, we have this incredible co-facilitated healthy relationships group with Mr. Amparato and Ms. Cruz, who's also in the audience. And so that's a great way how we incorporate those SEL skills, very relevant to our students who are ages 15 to 21 to talk about relationships. It's not just romantic, it could be friendships, it could be family. And so we know adolescents at that age love to talk about relationships. Another great group that we have that's SEL focused is Barbershop Talk. That's also facilitated Mr. Amparato and some of our other teachers here at the school too, our male teachers. And it's a great space for the men and the male students at our school to bond and talk about relevant issues, tying into the SEL work as well. And then I definitely want to highlight Girl Talk by Miss Singh and Miss Brown. And another thing that's great too is that it really is a partnership with the facilitators and the students. And so in Girl Talk, they also address relevant women's issues, and it's a safe space for our female students and our female staff to be a part of. And that's just some of the activities that we do.
Phenomenal work being done. I'm gonna come to, this is Lisa. How long are your intentional SEL instruction sessions? Mr. Amparato?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that we also have advisories that we also want to talk about. So the advisories, they usually run for the longevity of the period, but sometimes they go over time because the students don't want us to kind of just hang up on the Zoom. So what we did was we changed the time so this way the advisory class can go a little bit longer, but we try to keep it from a 45-minute to an hour mark, just to respect each other's time. But the benefits of that is the students do get to voice their opinions. The ideas are student-led, but it comes with the SEL competencies and the SEL curriculum. So we combine the two of them to make sure that we are getting through the curriculum as well as getting through what's on their mind as well.
Phenomenal. I have two questions. I see one, I'll close out. In my closing, I'll answer it. But the question before that is from Rhett Nelson. Some of our alternative schools are great on developing SEL reflected through attendance and relationships, but struggling to translate to academic growth and outcomes. Any recommendations on this next step? So maybe Ms. Jackson or Ms. Greer want to share?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we mentioned before is I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, just with our AIM 2, we started, it's different from AIM 1, but I know Ms. Grill talk about it. We started with just the counseling team, really focusing and implementing SEL. But one of the things that, to your point, the counselors and advisors have the great relationships with the students, but we notice that the teachers who need those relationships the most need them, right? And so one of the things that we did specifically this year, and we would have done it whether we were in a pandemic or not in a pandemic, was have those two teams partner together. So that's something that we've been very adamant about and very intentional about, is they cannot exist as two separate things. And so one of the things that Laquana Alexander, the assistant principal, and my director of academics have come together to make sure that that happened, not as two separate entities, not as the counselors are going to lead it and teachers are going to watch, or even vice versa. Those things had to happen together. And I think that's what I'm talking about when I say like being truly honored to work with a team of people. Like people like Ms. Pierce, Ms. Shock, they signed on and they were like, yes, count me in, right? And they've done that work and they've been doing that work. And I know it's just going to go to the next level next year. So to answer your question, I think for us, one of the recommendations is not to have that be a separate work. It must include both sides of it, because as teachers continue to grow, Ms. Pierce talked about it, building relationships is key for working in with alternative youth, or any youth for that matter. But building relationships is key. One of the ways you can do that, as you've heard the students say, is by approaching it with these principles, right? So I think just not having those things separated, and you can't do these things in silos. They must be together. I don't know if LaQuana or Ms. Greer want to add to that.
Yeah, I do actually. I think, one of the things that we really try to emphasize, to your point, Ms. Jackson, is that, there's the power of unity, and we see it as a just balance. It's not just academics and it's not just SEL. It's actually a cohesive work. And so it's not easy, right? So, and many of our teachers will tell you that, and our advisors will tell you that. But we have a staff that, right now, Mr. Amparado was telling you about advisory. Our staff, we go into advisory. It's not just only for, a specific group, and we're trying to continue. It's a work in progress. We are not perfect by any means by us showing, and demonstrating, but we really focus on everybody hands on deck. Ms. Yuvinen had talked earlier about our point persons. And so each of us have, including myself, 5 students that we track every week through our accountability coaching model. And we really try to aim at, as you heard Christopher say, as you heard Chris say, I need to work on my procrastination because that's aligned to self-management. Or you heard DJ talk about, how like these are things that people are talking to her about. And we as a staff, we do something called Team Talk that takes place once a week with our staff, where we are looking at the data. We're talking about these conversations that we've had one-on-one with students and collectively, whether it was in advisory, and we literally try our very best to try to figure out how can we support the students. Ms. Jackson said it best, it just cannot be done in isolation. It has to be geared towards academic targets as well as the SEL targets. And we're even looking at the next level of work. How do we not focus on attendance only? Like, how do we focus on your SEL competency is connected? We're a mastery school. So if you're mastering SEL competencies, you should be mastering your classes and your academic outcomes. And that's really where our next step is. But our staff will tell you it's a work in progress. Everybody has to see each person's role as valuable, and everybody bringing something unique to the table, teachers, advisors, non-instructional staff, and we're kind of all doing that as one.
Amazing. We're right at 3 o'clock. There's some amazing questions in the question and answer when we can't really get to them because of the time. But if you want to follow up, you can send myself directly an email. I can connect you to Ms. Greer. I can connect you to Ms. Jackson, the instructional leads. If you want to respond to those questions in the chat, you can, because they're really good questions. The last one was, what specific SEL programs are you using? Aperture, that's the DESA that you heard of. And then there's using multiple curriculums, because I heard Nearpod. We're also using School Connect. So there's multiple ones. And what the Urban Assembly tries to do with our tools is we try to bring everything together so that it coheres throughout the building. But that'll bring us to a close because it is 3:01. I want to thank Aperture for hosting our 3-part series. I want to thank you to all the students and staff and faculty from New Visions, AIM 1, AIM 2, charter schools for agreeing and planning and making this all happen, their commitment to the work. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. I hope everyone has a fantastic Friday and a wonderful weekend. And thank you again for being with us here. And I wish everyone well on their SEL journey across the country.
Thank you so much, Brandon.